Ladies, warmest welcome to the Genius Leadership Podcast. I love having both of you on the call at the same time.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I love to be here for sure.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting us, and it's great to be here and have the pleasure of sharing our experiences and what we've been doing the last year.
Exactly.
Is it just a year? I felt like it's been longer, but yeah, maybe.
It's a little bit longer. We started early 2023, right,
Yeah.
Helena? Yeah, so it was,
January, February, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just over a year, yeah.
Before we go into what you've been doing together, let's actually introduce each of you. So Hrefna, I would like you to start maybe and talk about yourself, your background, and a little bit about Tixly, and then Helena, you'll do the same about you and mental ráðgjöf. Okay?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Hrefna. I'm managing director at Tixly. For my personal background, I've been almost my whole professional adult life been working in relations to arts and culture performances and the ticketing part, especially around that. So now I'm a managing director at Tixly, which is a software company that provides arts and culture houses, ticketing and CRM solutions. And I've been with the company for just over 7 years now. And before that, I was at Harpa Concert Hall in Reykjavík, where I was a box office manager. And before that, I was at the Icelandic Opera as an usherette, taking the tickets and showing the guests where to sit. So basically, just right after studying, I went into this segment, and I've just stayed there, and I really love it. So that's basically who I am and what I've been doing. And when it comes to like Tixly and the growth of the company and myself in it, when I started, there were 3 employees in Iceland, and now we are 51 in 12 countries. So a lot has happened over the 7 years, and it's been a really, really great journey.
Fantastic. Congrats on the journey, and it's fantastic to see how you're opening new markets, you are reaching new countries, you're delivering there. I love seeing you in London, for example. It's such a huge city, so much happening there. And then this tiny little company from Iceland can deliver a solution there. It's like, yay.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah, just the last one with the opera and everything in Norway. I mean, you seem to be everywhere. It's honestly.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun, and we just are really well taken everywhere we go. Like just our platform really fits into all these markets, and it's just such a pleasure. And it has also been really organic. It has been like there have been opportunities in the markets, and we've just jumped on them and just went ahead and taken them. And it's just been great. And I'm not going to say effortless, but it's been very organic and always made sense for us as a company.
Mm-hmm. And we might dive a bit into your move with the family to actually cover the DACH region. But before that, let's actually get you, Helena, on the stage. Please introduce yourself. Who are you? What are we talking about here?
So I am Helena. I am, by foundation, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've been, doing that job for a long, long time. Before, I was actually working in both research and then in consulting for Gallup and Deloitte and different companies like that. Moved into being a manager in the financial sector for a couple of years. Managed to get out before the crash, and then I've just been doing various jobs. I've been working for Doctors Without Borders in different countries, both Arab, North African and Middle African countries, where I've been a lot of, I've been responsible for raising awareness and making sure that the communities we're working with know what mental health is and how to reach our services and all that. So, for the last 20 years, my passion has been mental health, getting it on the agenda, getting it Then in my last mission, I had no idea what to do next. When I got home, stumbled up on this article from McKinsey, and it was 2020, I think, and they said that there's a coming revolution in the way companies need to think and deal with mental health and the well-being of their employees, and that should be the priority of all managers in the coming years. And I thought, okay, that's it. This is so. And going with this, I printed this article. It was really, I was not having a good printer, and it took a couple of days to print actually in the country that I was in. And then this was my business plan.
Wow.
So yeah, I founded Mental Consulting or Mental ráðgjöf just before meeting Hrefna. I think 4 or 5 months before meeting Hrefna, where we are working. So our mission is to work strategically with companies for long-term projects where we come in, we do audits, we do some policy making, and then we work with them implementing and training and raising awareness for the mental health. And so we are very, focused on not being like shooting in the dark and coming in with one workshop where we train managers and then we go out. So our aim is to work a bit more long term than that. And it's been a ride for sure. I think we are doing quite well. We are now 3, getting to be 4. So, and there is a business for this, but it's a trailblazing one. So it takes time, and
I'm actually curious, what brought you to the mental health aspects of the clinical psychology in the first place? What resonated with that topic specifically?
Sorry, what do you mean, like from the clinical psychology into the mental
exactly
health?
Yes.
Yeah, I think no. So the reason I went into clinical psychology is that I wanted to join Doctors Without Borders. But then in Doctors Without Borders, I realized just talking about mental illness and fixing that is one thing, but mental health and maintaining a good, positive mental health is just quite another thing. So, and I also stumbled up on, the myths, the stigma, even our own prejudice, the access to care, and then to go into the mental health at work, knowing that, yes, we've been talking a lot about mental health and raising awareness for that in society in general, but it's still such a big taboo in workplaces. Responsibility for mental health is just being placed on the employee. You just go to a psychologist, you get yourself fixed and get back to work tomorrow, so I don't know. Yeah, all these things combined, it makes just such a, makes such a sense for me to actually, do this.
And before we go into the Tixly project that you've done together, I actually want to clarify something with you, Helena. You mentioned the terms mental health and well-being, and they are different. So could we specify or clarify the difference? So what is the similarities maybe or overlaps, and what are the differences between the two terms?
I'm not very good in definitions, and I would have to go into the WHO definitions of all this, but I'm not going to do that. But well-being is like the general well-being of us on an everyday basis. It's if we are flourishing or not, or if we're struggling. So it means that if we are in a well-being state, we are in flow, we are quite happy, but we could still be suffering from a mental health illness. So even if we are depressed, we can have different areas in our life we're happy with, we can still be flourishing. So well-being is more like a state that is just now, and it's influenced by different things. But then mental health is more being like in a, it's a more permanent state. It's where we are experiencing symptoms that are really dragging us down, that are, operating in a way to kind of reduce our, general well-being. So they are, of course, connected, but completely different factors, or no, not completely, but different factors can actually be operating. The reason I am talking a lot about the difference is that companies in the world in general have been super focusing on well-being, doing meditation, operating big, nice canteens, having a bit of, nice environments. And these are the things that are enhancing the general daily well-being of their employees. But when it comes to mental health, we need to think in completely different terms. We need to go deeper. We need to check what's in the workplace, what is actually dragging the mental, health of our employees down. So these are different things. We've been super good in investing in the well-being, but the mental health has not been kind of a topic that's been on the agenda. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
It does. I still have a lot of questions to follow up, because I love defining things, because and not by like dry definitions, but more like so that we actually understand the difference, right?
Yeah.
And here it's more like, I wouldn't say medical, but we're talking really about potentially things in our bodies that affect how our mental health is, and or what are the tools that are used in the mental health industry that we're missing in the well-being, so to say, or maybe they're not relevant there?
So I'm going to do it unconventionally. The thing is, we can enhance the well-being by reducing, of course, the stressors, and by, offering good food and, I don't know, a stress-free or working environment. But it's a bit like taking a pill when you have a headache. So, I mean, you can still experience some periods if you take the pill or the medicine where you have like general well-being, but just, the root or the cause of the headache is still there. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yeah.
So I know it's really something.
It goes deeper, and it focuses on the cause of the issues. And
not just a plaster. It's more.
It's not just a plaster, and that's a bit the thing. I mean, I can be in a depressed state, or I can be diagnosed with depression, but I can still have good days because the sun is out. The canteen is offering super food. I'm having a meditation course and work during the day, but I'm still riddled with my depression and what causes it. So it kind of, I don't know, dampens a bit, maybe. Yeah. I would say that could be one of the ways to describe the differences between it. The root causes are still there, even though we are enhancing the general well-being of our employees.
And I want to emphasize, and please disagree with me if you will, any of you, Hrefna, Helena, but I usually say that both have the space. So for example, with some of my clients, we focus sometimes on the short-term wins, and they are like, oh, it feels like I'm escaping the long-term gains or something. And I'm like, yeah, but right now you're in a survival mode, and we need to get you out of the survival mode to fix the cause. So that's why it's important to do these short-term things to start getting the resources to work on that. So it's like, okay, we can take the pill so that we actually, like, if it's a depression or let's say anxiety, right? Severe anxiety attack. Yeah. It's good to take the medication so that we can actually start talking about what is causing that and diving into that. So I just want to emphasize that we're not talking about like, okay, well-being is a plaster and that means that it like doesn't have any value. It's more like they absolutely have. It's just they are addressing different layers of the problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you need to shut down the fire before you start preparing, after it. So you have to.
I think that's a good analogy.
Very good one, yes. So Hrefna, tell us about the Tixly. Why did you reach out to Helena? What was the situation there? Why did you decide to work on the employee mental health? Or was it maybe not that you wanted to work on originally and then you ended up doing it? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, when we first just heard of Helena, we were just very curious. But like going back further, at Tixly, we have always emphasized on having fun and people feeling well, offering flexibility, because we've always believed in that. So it has always been in our values to take care of our employees and that it matters how they feel. And then like a year ago, Sindri, our founder, almost 3 years ago, he had a stroke, our founder. So that also affected, this prioritization. So both like his experience having a stroke and just getting through that was a lot of mental health work in that and in the recovery. But also it has always been within our culture. Like we always said that we want to have fun and celebrate the little things and do these things. And this has always been a part of Tixly. But we also just wanted to do it more proactively. We also wanted to see how are we actually doing? Like, can Helena and her team help us find out, like, are we doing well in comparison to other companies? And what can we do better? We really wanted to know that. So basically, and especially because we are growing, like I said, we have grown quite fast in the last years. And we are very aware that this then has to be addressed proactively and not just reactively. So that's also the reason why we did it at that time. We felt it was a great time to do it before we grow even further and before our culture maybe is affected by many, many more countries and cultures. So this needs to be a decision. And yeah, then I just saw it on LinkedIn, I think. Saw Helena's profile and reached out to her and just were curious what she was doing and what the plan was with her company, and had a great conversation. And yeah, then we were just really excited to try this out.
Before we go into that, I'm actually curious. You were growing fast. You were adding employees in new countries. So what kind of risks did you envision and wanted to proactively work to mitigate?
We wanted to make sure, we had the same culture everywhere. So we also don't really have an HR department. So that also affects that we need to have then at least policies in place and just make sure we are communicating how we work really well to new employees and new countries. So that's of course a challenge to do that. But we felt the risk is that as we are growing quite fast, if we don't put the focus, really into it, then maybe it will be forgotten and just accidentally not prioritized. Just because of the speed of how things are going, we're all busy, have full schedules all day and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's the main focus why we thought it was super important. And I mean, obviously, having people from so many countries, they have such different views of just how they work, and just the working culture is really different, and them as just people and how they come into the workplace from their families. And, they all bring very different things into the workplace every day. So we also felt that, we need to also be aware of that and just be aware of different cultures, respect them, and make sure that's also fostered in our culture.
Amazing. So Helena, when you came in, what did you see? So what do you observe in Tixly?
Well, I mean, so what we do normally is that we do an audit. So we do we had meetings with the managers, of course, and then we did interviews with the staff, and then we did a online survey without revealing any, so I don't want to go into confidential things. I mean, we saw we saw what Hrefna has been talking about. And I think it would be, more appropriate that if she wants to share some of the challenges, I don't think it's my place to do that.
But you're allowed to do it.
Okay. I mean, I think we saw exactly what she's saying. They're doing super good. They're working fast. The culture is fun. People love working there. But we did see a lot of differences between countries, how people are, working, how they are going live with project, how they're being managed, how the communication is, how the processes are actually being organized, and even just how they're communicating between countries. One country is willing to do a little bit after hours work, the other one not, So I think, they were doing absolutely fantastic. That's the thing. But it's also about when you're doing really well, I think that's the time when you need to, then you need to say, okay, what is it that we're doing well? How can we make sure we continue to do that? How can we make sure that everybody does it kind of the same way? And I will share one of the successes from what we have been working with them, as I see it, is that, Tixly has quite an amazing group of managers in each country. All of them super nice, very good communicators, good with people, good managers, good sales, a lot of talents. And they were all managing their people quite well, but not in the same way. So, and we have both from World Health Organizations like guidelines, but also something that we've been developing, is that we need to do things as managers in a certain way if we want to be proactive, offering support to our staff, offering, if we need to change the way we are working or allowing them to have a more flexibility or less or whatever, then we need to be more proactive. And this was possibly one of the challenges that we saw in Tixly. Everybody doing great, but not on the same, caliber. So people were differently treated, differently, being caught. So I think that was one of the things that we really, at least, wanted to focus on, to try to, make it a coherent program for the managers on how to reach out to their staff, making sure the communication lines are clear, making sure to raise the awareness that mental health at workplace is a subject we dare to talk about. Please come and see me if, you know. So I think this was one of the challenges that we saw.
I think this is absolutely right. I think we had a really good workplace then and do still now. But like you say, a lot of great people that manage their teams well, but maybe not. It wasn't structured, and there wasn't policies, but people just did it really well. So there were no issues in that sense. But we all know that as you're growing, there will become some issues if you don't actively decide to have it one way or another. You're not gonna be fostering that kind of management or like management you want to offer without having any processes in place.
This is very interesting. When you have those highly functioning teams with a good leadership in each country or each market you represented, and then you somehow need to synchronize those to bring that to some. How do you make it in a good way as keeping the respect of the cultural differences? What Hrefna, you mentioned a bit earlier, being aware of that, but also every team had their strength. So how do you find those strengths, bring them to the others instead of saying like, okay, we're gonna find the common denominator, the least common denominator, and everyone feels like, okay, you're limiting me in my strength and so on and so forth. So how did you balance that?
Yeah, it's of course a challenge. I think the most important thing is to have the guidelines, to have some structure and processes they can follow, but allow flexibility also. So they get guidance on how they do things. We implemented, like, for example, one-on-one interviews, like with the managers, with their team. So do that more proactively. It was not accidentally or irregularly. That's one of the things we changed. So we set these processes, but we also communicated to our teams that, of course, they can use their unique leadership skills also. We're not going to limit them into one box. But we're giving them guidelines on the most important things, and like how do you then treat an employee if they're suffering from something, or what kind of flexibility can we give them, and what tools do we have in our toolbox. But at the same time, of course, we allow them to be flexible and themselves, which is of course super important. And also like just the different culture things is just like being aware of them is also just like the biggest step, I think. So being aware that it's okay that we have different cultures, people are different, they communicate differently. Like one colleague of mine shared with me the other day that he's reading a book on different cultures from countries, and it's really, I asked him to get it borrowed after he's read it, because I think it's so interesting. Just that we go into conversations, and if we like have different backgrounds and come from different countries, we can interpret the conversation really differently, because we're maybe not speaking totally the same language. So these things, just being aware, I think, is the biggest key here.
I think also there's an interesting factor. We've been working with now a lot of companies, and we experience the same challenge everywhere. So one of the foundations that we do is that everything we do comes from the floor, let's say. So it comes bottom up instead of top down. So that's one of the things that are really, really important, that nobody feels that they're being shoved, down their throat, anything to do. So that's one of the keys. But then, so challenges that managers are experiencing in every country, every company we come into, is that they say, well, sure, I'll have these conversations, but I am not a psychologist, and they are scared, and differently scared with different things. One says, what if everybody starts to have mental health problems? So, that's one of the myths that we're working with. Another one is that what to do if an employee starts to cry. How even just to ask these questions. Is it okay? Is it allowed? Is it different from culture to culture? And what do I do if a person is struggling? So this, of course, we needed to think with Tixly. So we worked both with Hrefna to do like an EAP or an employee assistance program. They are working with, so they have that in place. Also, just to equip the managers with a bit of tools on how to respond if something happens, where to, direct the people. is it also possible that we can have some flexibility or some, I don't know, solutions in the company that we can, use to support employees who are struggling, and also just equip them a bit with, I don't know, the questionnaires, how to ask these questions and how to do it appropriately, or, in a sensitive manner, and what to do if somebody starts to cry. No, you don't need to be a psychologist. You just need to know what to, so different things like this. I think that was also one of the really good things.
I would like to understand a bit better when you say your approach is going from bottom up instead of top down. How does it work in practice when you are hired by the highest management of the company?
Sure.
So especially if something has been going south in the company, right? And they come into you not in a proactive way like Tixly did, but also but more like to fix a problem that is existing, and that there might be more skepticism, and it could be harder to get the buy-in from the people on the floor, as you said, to start working with you instead of feeling, oh, you're here to fix me or something like this.
Yeah. I mean, so that's one of the priorities that we really focus on, is that we always go in and we do an audit before we start. And that means we take interviews with as many staff as we think is necessary, or we do focus groups. So we really go and we have conversations with the staff that are either experiencing these things or have noticed that something is going south. So that's one of the things. And we are really focusing on that. This is your chance to have a voice. So we know that either not in Tixly, but in another companies, for example, we're working with, where things are really, people are struggling, we're giving them the voice. We're really telling them, this is your chance to say what is wrong, how to fix it, and all that. And then we make a very, we make a promise with the management team and say, listen, we do the audit, but that means we continue. This is not a report that will go into the drawer. And we really tell, and we're very open with the employees and say, we want to be transparent through the whole process. So as soon as we have the results from interviews and different audit types, we make an effort to go and, present it quite transparently to all the staff. So they know that I said this, I can see it there in the results. So this is one of the requirements that we make with the management team in the beginning. Of course, we're also working with the management team behind a bit closed doors, because we want to do and fix things. And of course, we can't fix everything, and we can't be transparent with, every single step we're taking. But I think this is one of the, most important things. The employee has a voice, and they really see it in the results. And then, of course, in the action plan, they, hopefully will see the actions that are being taken to, fix things. So I think the buy-in from the people is actually quite easy. It's the buy-in from, and this was not the case in Tixly, but the buy-in from the management is much more harder. I can tell you
that would have been my question as well, because I have experienced that with the companies when they're like, hey, come and fix my people. They're lazy, they're this and that. And it's like, no, I'm not going to work with that. And actually, in some conversations, I've been very straightforward and said, okay, this is blaming the rape victim. What you're doing. Either I work with you as well, or sorry, look for someone else. And some of them actually said, okay, I'll look for someone else. So do you try to or do you have any mind shifts? How do you work with that? Because sometimes it hurts to just leave the company, because I see amazing people within the company, but then when the leadership is not on board, what can I do for real?
So, I mean, we haven't yet had to leave a company, but of course we had to work with different managers on different levels within the companies that we've been working with. They have mostly been on board in the end. We tend to, I don't know, show them the pain or the challenges from different angles, not only from the human cost, but also just from the, financial costs that mental health issues within the companies are actually, they're really, really challenging. So I think in the end, I mean, it takes a while to get everybody on board, but, and normally if the majority is on board, then of course the minority has to get on board in the end. We haven't had to leave yet.
Good job. Good that you're managing to get everyone on board.
Well, half has then started to use our tools, And they say, I love it. It's, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the other half says, I need to jump on board too. So it's, we use different techniques to try and do this.
Good. Hrefna, was there any skepticism or any tension within the Tixly team when you were starting this project with mental ráðgjöf?
There were of course some worries that, just how does this work? And like Helen was describing, like, do I then have to be like their psychologist? How do I need to, I cannot handle this and I'm not trained for that. And these kinds of things. But no, in general, though, there was just a great support within the whole team. And I think it's also because it started with them being asked how they feel. So it's not just us like, okay, we have such a great culture, but let's keep it that way. And they're not even asked how they're feeling. That would be a really bad start, I think, to get them on board. So because it started with them being asked, and they voluntarily could volunteer to do the interviews, and they were not forced also. I think that's also really a key thing, to not force them to participate, but still try to get a broad group of people to participate. So that's what we did. And along the way, that this was probably the most, there was a little misunderstanding that they had to participate in every workshop, in everything we were doing. And some felt it overwhelming. So as soon as we clarified, this is voluntarily, this is supposed to be there for you if you need it, and if you want to participate. If not, you're just free to not do it. That's something we just needed to clarify, that we are not forcing them. But in general, there was just such a support from the start, and we created this great work group that really created the action items we decided to do and implement it. And it was just such a great teamwork, and it really helped the spirit. And yeah,
for sure.
So could you share some of the actions from there, if it's
absolutely.
Because I would like to go into practical, okay, let's take one action, and then how did you work together? What was Helena and her partners doing? What was done within the company itself? So
maybe I should start with, so how we came to do the action plan, and then after this audit, we had very clear challenges that we wanted to address in terms of mental health and the well-being, and and the management of the teams. So Hrefna formed a working group led by us, where we went through a certain process to really get the challenges out in the open. And then this working group said, okay, how, if I was the manager or whatever, how would I deal with these? So, and along the way, we also created what Hrefna has now in her computer called the mental health policy. So it's kind of like a framework with very clear goals, and then actions, intended to reach this goal. And I think that's where, that relates to the question you were asking about.
Yes. So first we finalized, this framework, like Helena explained, and then we defined the actions out of that, and we set deadlines and who's responsible and everything. So it was really clear, and it was not just, yes, we're going to do this, but no one knew would know what to do next. So one of the things is just we really wanted in general to improve this information sharing and internal communication in general. We've always had good communications, but it's as I said, because we had grown, it wasn't, we didn't do it proactively enough. So we needed to make sure we were sharing all the right information to everybody, and no one would feel left behind. So we did, one of the action items is a handbook, which is this is how we do things at Tixly, just how we work and how our culture is, and how we want to communicate, which channels we use, and these kinds of things. And we decided to also have a better platform for information sharing. So we actually have implemented an HR tool where people can communicate together. So we both use actually HiBob as our tool and Slack for communications day to day. So we combine these two for our communications, And like, for example, in HiPop, we now like publish all the announcements we have, and we can store all the policies and documents people have to look into. And like our onboarding process is in progress there. So we have like a structure for these things there. So that's one of the things.
Before you go to the next one, actually I want to pause on this one because striking the right balance with the communication is also a challenge, you know. How do you not under communicate that someone feels left behind, like you said, and at the same time you don't over communicate, especially when you grow, like who needs to have information, which information, when, and in which way, so that people just feel overwhelmed and that it's becoming like a side full-time job to just keep updated with the company communication. So how did you work with that? And I would like to hear experience from you, Hrefna, within Tixly, but also Helena with all your experience with dozens of companies you've worked with.
Maybe I can start because it relates a bit into what Tixly did and had to do. The thing is, information is power, no? Information is like, you know, if I don't have information, I feel left out, as she said. And I felt that, and we feel this in many companies, that if we really want to be inclusive, then we need to make sure that people have access to information. It's not about, you know, it's about looking at it from the other end. Who can access what, not what we can share, you know. So, and I think this is what we experienced in Tixly. They were super good in sharing information, but people felt differently they felt they had different access to information. So some people felt left out, or, you know, and that really, that brings in a lot of uncertainty, a little bit of anxious, you know, and I think this is typical in every company that we come into. If it's not done in a, you know, the appropriate way, what is the appropriate way is different from company for sure.
Very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like Helena said, I think we've always been very transparent to our employees and just communicating, and we don't really believe in having many secrets. Like there are always some information that just are not allowed to be shared for some time, but in general, like I think transparency is just really important, and just to be communicative is just really important. And there, I think more is just always better, just to let people know, but without, of course, overwhelming them. So, of course, just having a little bit structure on where each thing lives, I think is really important. So they know where to find the policies, they know where to find guidelines for ways of answering clients or whatever it is. Then they know where to find it. And then also making sure that people respect also like each other's like work, personal life balance. So not over like drowning people in with notifications on Slack and just like that. And then we also like encouraged people to just take the notifications off like after working hours, and, you know, do these things to set your own boundaries, because of course being in so many countries, we are also in many time zones. So a person in the US is obviously sending messages in her morning, which is my afternoon, and, you know, so we cannot just restrict it, but we just, each one of us has to just take responsibility and just post the notifications and schedule emails as well. That's something we've been trying out, doing a little bit more. Like, you know, even though I might be working on a Sunday occasionally, I don't really want to interrupt my staff on a Sunday, so I try to often schedule in accordance to like where the person getting the email lives. So just having this in your, like, it's not that much work. It's just thinking about this thing, having it in the back of your mind. I think really makes a difference.
And I think to add about that, it's maybe also just to, I don't know, give the permission to think like this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have all these policy. Oh, well, we say things as companies. Yes, we have flexible hours. We have, you know, the balance between life and work. We want to do things like this. But if we don't, you know, act accordingly. So I think the only thing that Tixly needed to say was like, please do this. You know, please take your own permission too. If you want to have the off evenings, take them off. You know. So I think it's more about being the role model, of course, and then allowing people to act accordingly, kind of.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point. And I think the role model part is really important,
Yeah.
you know, just to show it as an example that you live by it, and then they feel like they can as well.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's the same with mental health in general. I mean, to put it on the agenda, to say that we want to talk about it and we want to have a mental health policy is one thing. But what Tixly really did was I mean, they're eating it, they're breathing it. You know, I think, and being such role models about these things, talking about it openly, it's not about a PR thing. It's more just to, you know, to be daring to share, to daring to use the right words, to daring to say that we knew that we were struggling a bit, but now we are, you know, so also being a role model in that area, it helps with all the smaller things on the agenda in the end.
Yeah,
I like you mentioned several things that I want to reiterate because I think they're important. One of them is the balance between establishing the guidelines, having the clear communication strategy and structures and the tools that are relevant for that, but then still having the freedom for people to how to use it and how to implement it for them, and also keeping some of the responsibility on the employees. So they are responsible on setting their own boundaries, switching off their notifications, and so on and so forth. And I think this is a very important part because I see a lot of companies going to extreme one way or the other. So either they are like just becoming super strict on how the thing is done, and I don't know, the settings of notifications are set by the company for everyone, or you just have all the responsibility on the employees for their well-being and their mental health, and the company is like, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not going to do anything in this area. So it's beautiful to show this example how you worked on that, combining the two and finding that good balance between the two, given the structure, given the clarity, but at the same time still keeping some flexibility and freedom for people to decide how exactly that should look like for them. And just like you providing the support for the implementation of that. I appreciate that.
I think also this is just so important because like we all come with different values. Like what suits me the best doesn't necessarily suit someone else. So you should, you know, some people really function within boundaries and they need framework, otherwise they feel just insecure and just not feel good. But, you know, other person just love the flexibility. So I think you have to kind of try to do both. You know, you have to have the guidelines so they know where to follow and how this should be like in general. But also like give those, especially the butterflies, you know, give them, you know, the freedom and flexibility to really perform, because, you know, this is not only about them feeling well, but also like about performing in their roles and just, you know, being successful for the company. You know, then you need to allow them to be themselves.
Speaking of which, Helena, I actually want to ask you, people are very different, like, right? And when the manager comes in, we put the expectation that they will get to know each person on their team and they'll know how to approach them. They will customize their way of communicating and so on and so forth. They will get to know the name of the pets and the hobbies and really use that information. And I get this challenge from managers when they say like, okay, but where am I in this? If I'm always adjusting, I'm losing myself. I lose my own way of communication because I always need to adjust it to the others. So how do you help managers find their stable ground there?
Well, this is the $1 million question in life. So I don't know if I can answer it actually, but I mean, so let me take a personal example. I've been struggling with this myself since I'm, 20. So where is the boundary of me being the sensitive to how others, I mean, that's the core of the question, or do others need to be sensitive to me? No?
Yeah.
Oof. To be honest, I don't have the answer, but I'm going to say that it's again about a permission. It's again about a mutual discussion on how we function best as a team, how we need to be sensitive to the needs of each other. It's not about me only having to listen to you. I also, if I'm clear as a manager what I expect, there are certain things that I expect. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to adjust. I'm ready to do whatever. But in the end, I need to also be the manager. So we need to, and this is what we have this course or, I don't know, workshop where we say it's about communication. And one of the biggest things there is not only boundary setting, which is the classical, but what we call assertive behavior. So you need to assert yourself, of course, as a manager, but as staff also, of course. So I think we need to rely on both, kind of the manager being assertive enough to be able to, be sensitive, but still I want to do things, in a certain way. But then, of course, giving the staff also the assertiveness or, the self-confidence to be a bit assertive and say, well, I respect your, requirements, but I have also. So, and I think this needs to be a constant conversation.
Hrefna, do you want to add anything to Helena's answer here?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I feel like, just always in relationships in general, I think, there needs to be a balance and needs to be about like adjusting to each other. It shouldn't be, it's not fair that the manager just adjusts to each employee and like you say, like they never get to be themselves. That's also not, I think, what the employee wants. And, the employee will then sense that it's forced. So I think it's, it can't be good. So I think making it a little bit more complicated, but I think it should be a little bit adjustable to each and every relationship within the company, as well as, outside of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, us as humans, I mean, we are adjustable, right? So, and I think we are quite often like good at reading each other and reading different situations, and so I think that's comes in there.
Really, yeah.
Were there any surprises for any of you in the project? Some outcome that you did not expect, maybe something new for you, Helena, with like, you didn't need to do it with the previous companies, or Hrefna, you were like, oh, suddenly we need this policy, or like, whoa, this becomes a side effect of what we're implementing. Anything like this?
I don't know should I start?
Yeah, start.
I mean, I think Tixly was our third customer. We knew that we had designed a process and blah, 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 that we knew where we were aiming for results, for sure. We'd done one with work with two companies, but we hadn't finished the process, so we didn't know what the end result was going to be. Now, because we do an online survey in the beginning with Hrefna and Tixly, for sure, where we ask kind of standard questions about how employees are perceiving the support of the company in relating to mental health, if the policies are, reflecting the mental health needs and all that. So it's 5 or 6 questions that we ask. And Tixly was at that point, scoring okay, not the highest of the 3 companies for sure, but still a little bit low or lower than we would have, of course, wanted. That's why we're doing it. So when we got the results a year later, I think it's one of my, I don't know, I'm going to say hardest moments in my life, because we had no idea, of course, if it was actually working. But I think my biggest surprise was to see, I mean, I don't know if we should call it the high jumping, so everything that they had been working on outside of our collaboration with us, with the managers, all these action items that they had been working on, at least according to the online survey, worked. And now normally we are aiming for something on a scale from 1 to 5. We're aiming for having all companies above 4.2 in the last result. And I think they were 4.5 to 4.78. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm not going to say it was a surprise, but it possibly the biggest relief for sure.
To be honest, like it was kind of a big surprise for me, because I thought we were in general doing quite well. Like we're not doing bad. As Helena said, there were some improvements we wanted to do, and we could do better in some areas. In many areas, we were already doing really well, but we still like improved in all the big factors. Like because we took this together also for, I did a presentation on this on a conference recently. And there are a few items that we published there, like that the policy is supporting mental health, management prioritizing mental health, open discussions being promoted, support and understanding from managers and vice versa, and that the person can tell the manager if they're struggling. So there were like a few of these items that we specifically looked at after the big results from Helena and the team. And we raised in every single category, which I did not expect, because I don't know, I know that we are doing well. I know we have really good employees. They feel well. They, have been with us for a long time, many loyal people and just really loving their job. But still, it was really surprising that it increased in all these categories. And I was really surprised. I thought we might have maybe increased in 2 or 3 things and maybe just stood in the same place in the others, something. That's what I expected, but it was quite a big improvement. So really, really happy. And one more thing maybe that I realized, like maybe not a big surprise, but I wasn't aware that it was so important that, people expressed one of the things that they loved about all of this was the boundaries we were making and the policies, because I was under the impression that people really loved the flexibility, but then, okay, there are actually quite a lot of people that actually love the boundaries and they love to exactly know what is expected of them. And that's, and of course it made sense when I saw it, but I was like, okay, so it was actually like all the flexibility and like the easygoingness, maybe was a little bit of a negative thing that, it kind of surprised me.
That's a very good point. There's one interesting fact in all of this, because the other reason I went into this business was that there's a big disparity between managers and HR and then the staff in general, according to research all over the world, in how the employees feel that they're being supported or accessible, to their managers, and then how the manager or the HR department feels. So normally we would say 70% of managers and HR people say that the company is really supporting people and we are very accessible and all that, with only 1/3 of employees being in agreement. So taking that into account, getting these results in only 1 year, which was of course filled with a lot of actions and a lot of really nice things, that is quite an accomplishment. So yeah.
Great job to both sides of the project, both of you.
Well, they took the ball. They took the ball and they ran really fast.
No, thank you. And just know it was also a really great job by Helena and the team. And just their support was just invaluable in this, because we would never have done it. And not only setting the framework and helping us do that, but also just, I don't know, they just really supported us and did it in a really good way and motivating way. It wasn't too, to me as the managing director, it wasn't too I didn't feel like it was too ambitious or too much. I thought it was just nice little steps we were taking, and really felt like we had the support to take them, and it wasn't too hard actually.
That's great, and that's really kudos to you, Helena, and your team for that, because that's not easy sometimes. As a consultant, you come in and it's like not you, but many companies just make it fancy, make it complicated to look somehow experienced. But I think the brilliance is when you actually can make it very simple, so that it is not overwhelming to implement it, and then you see the results, just like you did with the survey after the year. Hrefna, you mentioned about the boundaries, that it's a beautiful insight that people appreciate it and the frameworks. Could you maybe read out a bit about the boundaries, or give an example of what does it mean? How did you specify those boundaries, or what are the rules of the game you set for Tixly employees that they appreciated?
I think it's both just having the boundaries of just how they work, what we are trying to achieve, have it really visible, what our goals are, and just what our focus is at each time, just having this information in place, and just having the boundaries for them, just to, whether it's having a budget for this project and just really knowing that they're working within this budget, or setting themselves, goals to achieve. And it's also not only boundaries, it's also just expectations. That's also a huge part of that thing that we realized. So just that they know what is expected of them, and so forth. So, and one of the things we have more actively implemented, we had started a little bit before, but is doing like performance reviews. So manager to employee to just explain what is expected and just have a really good and open conversation about how the employees are feeling, what they feel they should be doing better, what they feel has gone well and not so well, and vice versa. And so these things, just them having more knowledge about what's expected of them, what policies we have, and just the tools we have if they need any help. So that also was really appreciated. So not just me saying at the weekly meeting, yeah, we're really flexible and blah, 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 but just nailing it down, just what that actually means. And like we one of the things we also did is we did DEI workshop about inclusivity and these things, and so just having these things is just really valuable.
Yeah.
Helena, do you want to add anything to this point of Hrefna?
No, I think, I mean, for the boundaries, again, it's about you can say certain stuff, but then of course you have to live up to it a bit, and then you have to make sure that all the supporting elements are there. Because I think, I mean, WHO and our experience and also our research points to the fact that if people don't know exactly what is expected of them, no matter what you're doing, flexibility, do it like 9 to 5 or not, or whatever, if they don't know, and if they have no information on how they're doing, and if there is not a direct line with my next manager or my team, so I know if I should be doing better, or I should just decrease or whatever. I think this is kind of the key thing that they've done in a very beautiful way, and in many different things they've done. One of the things that they did is that they've opened a direct communication line so they have like regular check-ins from their manager to the staff. With managers, of course, both in Tixly and in everywhere else that we've been working, they say, yeah, but I am always there and my door is always open. But it's not enough because, well, our experience says that 40% of your people is actually going to say, hey, I need to talk to you. The other 60% are not going to do it. It's not exactly like that in Tixly, but I think a lot of people feel that way. They don't have the assertiveness to always being, knocking on the door on the manager. So making sure that there is a direct and a formal, or let's say formally or informally formal communication line where the manager books a check-in every month or every week or whatever their rhythm is, where they sit down and say, hey, this is our time. Tell me, I think that's one of the magic ways that they've done. Now, there is a catch there, because in Tixly, everywhere that we've been working, managers say, no way, I don't have time for that. But they have time for hour-long, I don't know, firehouse meetings where they are, trying to, so instead of doing a few check-ins, they are taking the toll in the end by having to solve a lot of issues. So, but if you go proactive, you check in with your staff 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every 2 weeks, every month. You don't need the 2-hour-long, crisis meeting in the end. So, yeah.
And that's a very important point here. And I usually, I think I've learned this analogy from the 9 Lies About Work book. And they just cover different myths. And one of them was about the one-to-one meetings. And they say, and I use that in my trainings and workshops. I ask people raise your hand if you brush your teeth once a year. And everyone smiles and no one raises the hand. And I was like, okay, raise your hand if every time you brush your teeth, you do it 100% perfectly. And again, no one does it. I'm like, this is the same with your one-to-ones. It's better to do it more often and not completely perfect rather than once and just go for perfection. It's not about that. It's really building this relationship and the channel, as you say, Helena, for the regularity of the conversation.
And one more thing, even if you go and meet the same employee every 2 weeks, every month, 5 minutes, and they always say, I'm fine. persist until they're not, or until they have something. So and that's also the illusion that I'm always asking them and they're always fine. Yes, until they're not. And then you better have the trust and the open communication to actually be able to catch it before it's a crisis. So
I think it's also
important.
because we implemented these like one-on-ones, and I do it with my team, for example, once a week, 15 minutes. And sometimes they get dragged, to be longer, sometimes they're shorter. And just as long as you're aware that, if there's nothing to discuss or no problems, then you just keep it short. And then it's just like 5 minutes, and then you just say bye. It's but to have it on the schedule, I think is really key. And this is what I've experienced, especially after I moved abroad, further away from especially the Icelandic team, who were used to having me there. You have to have these conversations, because otherwise they're not gonna, call me up unless it's really important, and then it's, maybe has gone too far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
the key.
Hrefna, you mentioned that you don't have an HR department. And I would like to touch upon that with both of you. Why is that decision? Are you planning to start one, or and generally then going bigger, what do you see as the function of the HR department in companies in a healthy, sustainable way?
Yeah, we are planning on getting an HR specialist soon. It's just not been prioritized. It's not been necessary, I think, up until now. Like I've been doing it just myself and just with support from other people. But I feel like we are reaching now to like a point where we actually need someone, because just as we're growing, the problems will come up. And then it's really time consuming to try to figure it out if you're not a specialist in the area, and it's costly as well. So makes sense, I think, very shortly. So it's in our plans definitely to do that, and I think it's really valuable. But up until now, we've just I've managed it fine, I think, myself. We did this policy. We've done some good groundwork for the people, and it's always been a priority for us. But now, we're reaching a point where we have to do it in a more structured way, definitely.
Helena, what would you say? Like, where is it relevant, or when does it become relevant for the company to start working on hiring one, and what would be the focus areas for that person?
I think, so for Hrefna and her team, for sure, and for companies in general, you have to be big enough, of course, money-wise and everything. So if you have a company of 20, 30, and you have a manager who is quite, who's a good general manager, who is maybe seeking some support from outside help, I don't think they can actually afford to have a special HR person. And I don't know if it's actually, a big enough job for a small company like that. But as they grow, of course, and they have more people recruiting, onboarding in different countries and cultures, maybe the need gets a bit more pressuring. So for me, it's not about HR department or whatever. It's just about, like Hrefna and her team have been doing, they've been taking this super seriously, with Hrefna being possibly one of, she's top HR for now, like the way she's been doing things. So it's, if you don't have the specialization, get it from somewhere else, get support, read, see conferences and all that. But then it's also about having some, policies in place. So HR in the end is more like a role of supporting the other managers on how to do their HR. So if you can do that yourself, like Hrefna has been doing with a bit of help from us, and then she's been having also other consultants coming in and supporting them, I think that's, the solution for smaller companies at least. So, I think in terms of HR, so middle managers today are the HR people of yesterday. So I don't know how you want to support them, but it's about building their capabilities. It's about, offering them the tools, the policies, the processes, so we kind of want to delegate a lot of the HR work, the people management to the middle managers today. So I think they actually have the greatest HR job.
Absolutely. Sure. I think also what we actually have also been doing with this work group we created, we also created like a work group around data action. So, and we created a work group around, HR stuff and like communications and these things. And there are just people who like have different roles, but they are all interested in the topic. And that's also an opportunity, because then you're also allowing them to try something new out and giving them, more diversity in their job and just allow them to take part in this project, and they really thrive, doing that. They're not like one example is just a person maybe working in the Netherlands, she's servicing our clients, and then she's also taking part in this. So she's also contributing to the global perspective and getting more diversity in her job as well. So that's been really, really nice. And now I see it just as looking forward, I don't think we will hire at this point a full-time HR person, but there are also like a lot of companies that have like HR consultants you can just like rent or in that terms, and you can get someone part-time and just or a consultant that is actually ad hoc or something. You can just call them up. So there are so many opportunities. We are really looking into that now. So how is best to support this going forward?
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to also tap into the topic of walking the talk as they maybe starting to wrap up, because you mentioned that, Hrefna, like how important it is for us to do it when we are trying to implement some changes or emphasize something that is important for us as a company. And tell me if, like, I didn't ask you beforehand, so tell me how personal you want to go there. But you moved your family from Iceland to Germany, to a new country for you all, to grow your presence, Tixly's presence in the DACH region. And that comes with a lot of challenges, right? You have small kids here in Iceland, families are so close with each other. So I assume you had more family support with just, managing everything as a family. And there you go somewhere where you don't have that support system, you're in a new culture and so on. So how did you manage that with your husband, with your kids? And how did you show that to the company just to walk your talk?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. In general, like I am very, I'm not afraid of taking risks or like jumping on opportunities. And we saw this as a really good opportunity for the family just to try something new. Like me and my husband have always lived in Iceland, and we really wanted to, get the opportunity to live somewhere else at some point. And then when this opportunity showed up, then we were like, yes, like why not? Like, and also like my husband is currently also doing a job he can do basically from anywhere. So it's also a good time for us to try that now. The kids are not too big for it to be really difficult for them. But of course, it's been a massive project, and we took 3 kids here out and a dog and an au pair with us, and it's we're not a small family, but it has been really fun adventure to do this. We've learned so many things. We've had to, of course, adjust to a whole new country, get into like the tax system and how everything works, and register into the country and get insurances and all these boring stuff, but necessary. But also like our kids are learning a new language, and we are trying as well, not as good as them, but and they are like, I just see it as such a gift to them for the future, because they will be more adjustable. They will have this ground, like they will have German in their back of their minds. They will probably have to, of course, learn it again, but they will have this, in their toolbox later. And it's been really great. And it also has moved me closer to like the European offices and the ones we have on the mainland, which was also like a part of the challenges we had. Like being an Icelandic company, most of the people in Iceland, most of the managers, like the higher management, most of them in Iceland. So it was also, I think, a good thing to like go from Iceland, be on the mainland, be closer to the offices, and that has really helped for the company in general. Just showing that, and I think it's all been really positive, and people have just the employees have been so supportive of it as well, and just really, really fun.
Helena, have you from outside seen what maybe Hrefna did really well, or where the company culture has really manifested in this move, that it really supported it to go smoothly and healthily for everyone?
Well, I haven't been so much since he moved. We haven't been that much in contact, but there's two things I take away from just what she said now. She has an au pair.
Yes.
Now, I know that doesn't, it doesn't replace the mom or the dad, but of course, that means that there are some, general challenges on daily basis that the Hrefna doesn't have to deal with. So she's doing the right thing, and just instead of reacting to a situation where her whole family is in Germany, living there, and then all of a sudden everything is in a crisis. Oh my God, we have to get an au pair. No, she was thinking ahead, and she managed in a very proactive way like that. But I think then also, like she said, the whole company and everyone we have been speaking about are so supportive of this. So I think of course it must be hard for the people in Iceland to lose a bit of contact with her, but then you gain, you win some, you gain some for sure. But knowing Hrefna also, knowing that she does once a week checkup with her team, for example, that they do really well in staff meetings once a week, and they do really well in all the information sharing. So I don't think this should be a challenge for the company in general. I think it's more, much more pros than cons for sure.
Yeah, I think also to add to it, I think it has really helped that we started this project, before I moved, because we were, working on these things exactly at the same time. And also actually in that work as well, and getting more like other people to have ownership and responsibilities in the project. I was on maternity leave for 3 months last year, because I had the third one just last year as well, in the midst of planning to go. So I think actually I took a step back and just let the team also take, responsibility for some implementation items from the policy. I think that actually helped also in this project. But yeah, because you said also because the support net, of course, is in Iceland. The au pair definitely helps, but we've also just been focusing on these last months of more like ground family time together, just family time with us, just the core family, because we don't have all the big family or the friends around, which of course miss, but we just see it as an opportunity to strengthen our bonds as well at the same time. And the weekends are like slower. You're not going to birthday parties, you're not going to dinner invitations, we're just being us together, which is quite nice also for some time. I want to have the other things as well, but yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a beautiful mindset that we're using this time to create a quality connection, deep connection with each other, create memories together, knowing that this is not forever, this move, and us being here in Germany. Let's use this time for ourselves, for exploration of our surroundings and the culture, and then we move back to the things that we appreciate back home.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, ladies, we've covered a lot in this conversation, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you Genius Leaders did as well. So to wrap up, Hrefna, maybe we'll start with you. Any suggestion to others who are listening, who are leading the teams, leading the companies, if they feel overwhelmed, if they feel in the firefighter mode, that they are, like Helena was saying, like in those crisis meetings for 1 hour on end or whatever it is, what could be the first step for them to really take themselves out of that firefighter mode and overwhelm, to start turning the tide and actually going to a healthier way of leading?
I think the most important is just, of course, you have to just address the biggest things and just put them down a little bit. But then you need to take some time just to really sit down and figure out, what could be good steps to fix it, like in the core. And definitely get some consultancy. Like you shouldn't be an expert yourself on these things. Just get someone you trust and want to work with to help you. I think that's probably my biggest recommendation. Don't be afraid of getting outside help. It's a good investment as well. We're not all specialists in our areas, and we should, get help from those who know better. And just prioritize this. Also, like in regards of just employees and relationships with them, it's just for the whole, like for the goals of the company, whether it's reaching some target financially or what it is, or growing, you don't do it without a good team that is performing well, is feeling well. And also for us just being a part of the society, I think it is a big responsibility just to take care of the people that are, spending most of their days, at the workplace, and just having a healthy workplace. It's a social responsibility as well. But I would say just first step, just think about different ways of maybe sorting this long term. Just take money at a time, just take an hour, sit down, think of some solutions, get outside help, and divide it into small steps. Just one step at a time. That will get you there. You're not going to fix it all in a week or in a month even, but over maybe a year or two, you can actually get really far and involve the team. That's so important. Don't decide it all yourself. And like, I was a part of the work group we created, but I really tried to not be too vocal. Sometimes it's difficult, but I really tried to give them, the space to come up with the ideas, but they shouldn't be all mine or the management teams. It should be from the people. And then, then they gain ownership and they feel responsible and they really, are invested in it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks.
And she did it really well. I think so. The first steps, well, there's a precaution that I would like to make. There are no easy, quick solutions, So, I'm called once a day, maybe even more, by people who are experiencing some problems, and they say, can you come in and do a workshop on communication? Because I think everything is going to break, And I say, no, I don't do that, because we don't want to shoot in the dark, and we don't want to come with an easy solution where even, we can just check it off. Did it, it's out. Because I've been a consultant for too many, years with people investing too much money in getting me inside the company to do an easy, quick solution, which doesn't work. So I don't want to work like that anymore, and I wouldn't recommend it anymore. The first step for me is just to put this on the agenda, in every way you can, to get the permission from the managers, from the staff, that this is a subject we talk about. It's an accepted subject. It's okay not to be okay. I know it's a cliche and everything, but, make sure that this is at least the first step, that this is an accepted topic. It's not a stigma topic. It's not something we are afraid of because we think it might shed a negative light on us, whatever. And that means being with the managers, being role models. That means getting, education, either lecturer or a specialist or whatever, to come up, to at least open the subject. I think that would be the first natural step, whether you do it yourself or you do it with a consultant like us, or, however you prefer to do it. I think that's the first step. Yeah.
It's an important one, and a lot of people miss, right? When you feel like, okay, something is broken, you could easily end up just sitting and trying to fix it on your own. And as both of you mentioned, we need to get it on the agenda. We need to make it everyone's discussion topic, because then we can get to a solution together in a way that everyone has the buy-in, everyone has the ownership of it, and everyone wants to contribute because they know it will work for themselves.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies, for the beautiful conversation, for sharing, taking the time from your busy schedules. Hrefna jumped onto the call straight from the airport, just landed home and off to the Zoom. So thank you for that. Helena, you were speaking at the conference in Madrid and just arrived late night. So thanks again for doing this. Even though you had lack of sleep, it didn't show at all.
It is a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a really fun conversation, and I hope it's useful for someone. And just thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Genius Leaders, you know what to do. You have the links to the companies in the show notes. You have the links to the LinkedIn. So if things resonate, please reach out to Hrefna and Helena and talk about that. It's always so positive and so energizing to get the responses about what has landed, what came in the right moment, what kind of wording really worked for you and helped you, gave you permission to think about those things or anything like that. So please reach out, check out if you are interested in their services. Please also do that. And I just want to remind you, as always, that I see you, I feel you, I love you. And I do believe that we can build healthy companies where everyone thrives, and we can do it together with our employees. So go take the first step for yourself, whatever resonated the most with you from the conversation. And let's just keep working on that. Talk to you next week.